You are here because you're tired of being affected by people, by drama, by chaos, by noise. You're here because you're ready to become untouchable. In this audiobook, you will learn the psychology of quiet power, the discipline to stay calm when others lose control, the mindset to move without seeking approval, and the mental frameworks that make you immune to manipulation, disrespect, and negativity. From this moment forward, your emotions are no longer public property. Your mind belongs to you, and you alone. This is the transformation you came for. This is the moment your quiet power begins. You lose power every single time you give attention to noise. Every single time. And the problem is simple. You've trained the world to believe that you are available on demand, available for drama, available for chaos, available for breakdowns that aren't yours, available for emotional emergencies that have nothing to do with your life, your goals, or your peace. You have to hear this clearly. Availability is not kindness. Availability is not loyalty. Availability is not strength. Most of the time, availability is self-destruction disguised as being a good person. People don't drain you because they're powerful. People drain you because you keep the door open. That's the truth. That's the key. And here's your reality check. Every reaction costs you power. Remember that. Say it again inside your mind while you listen. Every reaction costs you power. This chapter is about reclaiming that power. This chapter is about teaching you the psychology of distance. Because distance is not avoidance. Distance is strategy. Distance is discipline. Distance is protection. You want to become untouchable? Then you must master the art of disappearing from anything that feeds off your emotional energy. Let's break it down. 1. Chaos enters through open doors. Chaos doesn't kick its way into your life. It doesn't break your windows. It asks for permission, and you give it. You give it when you respond to the drama-filled message. You give it when you answer the 2 a.m. panic call. You give it when you let guilt texts drag you into emotional debt. You know exactly what I'm talking about. The urgent message that suddenly becomes your responsibility. The "I need to talk to you right now" text that ruins your entire day. The emotional long paragraphs that dump someone's crisis into your lap. You think you're helping. You think you're being responsible. But you're not. You're being controlled. You're letting other people's instability dictate the temperature of your mind. And let me be direct with you. It is not your job to be an emotional ambulance for people who refuse to manage their own chaos. You have a choice. You've always had a choice. You just never used it. Because no one taught you that protecting your energy is a form of strength. No one told you that disappearing sometimes is the most disciplined move you can make. That changes today. 2. Constant availability is a weakness, not a virtue. In a world where everyone is addicted to instant responses, the person who is not instantly available becomes the one in control. When you reply immediately, you communicate something you don't even realize. My time is not valuable. My mind is open for interruption. My emotions are accessible to anyone who wants to manipulate them. That's the truth people don't want to hear. Everyone talks about boundaries, but boundaries mean nothing if you respond to every beep, buzz, notification, and emotional bait. If someone can reach you anytime they want, they can influence you anytime they want. That's the key. Power is the ability to control access. Access to your time, access to your energy, access to your mind. Remember this. The more access they have, the less power you have. Untouchable people are not always available. Untouchable people create friction. Untouchable people require effort to reach, not because they're arrogant, but because they understand the value of their mental peace. You want to be mentally strong? Stop being instantly reachable. Stop explaining why you're not available. Stop apologizing for protecting your space. You don't need their permission. You really don't. 3. Real-world emotional traps designed to pull you in. Let's talk about the traps, because emotional traps are everywhere, and if you don't recognize them, you will fall into them over and over again. Trap number 1. The crisis text. Hey, I really need to talk. It's urgent. 90% of the time, it's not urgent. It's emotional dumping dressed up as an emergency. Trap number 2. The guilt message. I guess you're too busy for me now. This is manipulation. This is an attempt to hook you into proving your loyalty through emotional labor. Trap number 3. The drama update. You won't believe what just happened. Drama is bait. Drama is a hook. Drama is designed to pull your attention away from your focus. And every time you engage, you're reinforcing a habit. I am available for chaos. You can't build a powerful mind while feeding on emotional junk food. You have a choice. Either participate in the noise or rise above it. And rising above it requires discipline. 4. Install a new rule. Distance is protection. This is the part where you change your life. Distance is not cutting people off. Distance is choosing yourself first. Distance is clarity. Distance is maintaining the space you need to think, breathe, and stay grounded. Here's the rule you must install. If it drains me, I distance myself, no explanations, no apologies. That's the rule of untouchable people. That's the rule of quiet power. Distance protects your mind from emotional noise. Distance protects your focus from manipulation. Distance protects your peace from instability. You don't have to block everyone. You don't have to disappear from the planet. You simply stop being immediately available. You create response delays. You create emotional space. You create boundaries that actually mean something. When you distance yourself, you gain leverage. When you distance yourself, you gain clarity. When you distance yourself, you gain back every ounce of power you've been giving away. Remember the repetition? Every reaction costs you power. So react less. Respond slower. Choose your emotional investments with intention. Distance is protection. Distance is discipline. Distance is freedom. Conclusion of Chapter 1. You just learned the first law of becoming untouchable. Stop making yourself available to chaos, because every moment you give to noise is a moment stolen from your growth, your peace, and your future. You know the truth now. You know the traps. You know the rule. Your power returns the moment you choose distance over drama. And now that your mind is quieting, it's time to take the next step in your transformation. You mastered your availability. Now, let's master your inner climate. You cannot be untouchable if your internal world is unstable. Understand that right now, because this is the foundation of quiet power. Your inner climate determines everything. Your mood, your decisions, your reactions, your discipline, your momentum.
If the weather inside you is chaotic, unpredictable, and reactive, then you will always be controlled by the outside world. That's the key. Untouchable people don't wait for the world to calm down. Untouchable people create calm within themselves. They manage their emotional temperature the way a pilot manages the cockpit, deliberately, consciously, and without panic. Because the calmer you are, the more control you have. Hear that again. The calmer you are, the more control you have. This chapter is about that control, the control that comes from breathing, from pausing, from slowing down while everyone else is speeding up, from mastering your internal climate so the external world can no longer dictate who you are. Let's break this down step by step. 1. Your emotional climate is a choice. Here's the truth you've avoided your entire life. You choose your internal climate. You always have. You just never learned how to take that choice seriously. You have a choice when someone disrespects you. You have a choice when someone tries to provoke you. You have a choice when work pressure spikes. You have a choice when your relationship triggers hit a nerve. You don't control what happens, but you absolutely control how hot or cold you run inside. It's not about perfection, it's about discipline. It's not about never feeling anything. It's about refusing to let your emotions run your life. People lose control because they react before they think. They speak before they breathe. They escalate before they understand. Not you, not anymore. You're training yourself to pause first, to breathe first, to observe first. Because that pause is everything. That pause is power. That pause is the difference between losing your mind and mastering it. You have a choice, and the moment you take ownership of that choice, your life changes. 2. Breathing, pausing, and pattern breaking. Let's get practical. Real power requires real techniques, and there are 3 internal tools that untouchable people use every single day: breathing, pausing, and pattern breaking. Tool number 1, breathing. Your breath is the remote control for your emotional temperature. Slow breathing sends a clear message to your nervous system. I am safe, I am grounded, I am in control. Fast breathing creates chaos. Slow breathing creates clarity. That's the key. When pressure spikes, slow down your breathing. In through your nose, out through your mouth. Deep, controlled, deliberate. Because the calmer you are, the more control you have. And the fastest way to calm is through your breath. Tool number 2, pausing. The pause is one of the most powerful forms of self-discipline. A pause stops emotional momentum. A pause creates space for thought. A pause interrupts the automatic pattern that used to run your life. Someone insults you? Pause. Someone sends a triggering message? Pause. Someone tries to provoke a reaction? Pause. Pause before you reply. Pause before you react. Pause before you escalate. Because every reaction costs you power, and a pause protects that power. Tool number 3, pattern breaking. Your reactions are habits. You have spent years reacting the same way to the same kinds of stress. Now it's time to break those patterns. When you feel the familiar surge, the anger rising, the panic rising, the frustration rising, change your physical state. Stand up, move, shift your breathing, interrupt the automatic reaction. Pattern breaking is discipline in action. It's not about emotion, it's about control. Because the calmer you are, the more control you have. 3. How winners slow down when everyone else speeds up. Look closely at the people who stay steady under pressure. They're not superhuman. They're simply trained. They move differently. In a work conflict, while everyone else snaps, interrupts, and tries to dominate the moment, a winner slows down. A winner speaks calmly. A winner thinks before they strike. Why? Because speed is emotional. Calm is strategic. In relationship triggers, while the average person becomes defensive, reactive, loud, and unstable, a winner stays rooted. A winner breathes. A winner listens without letting their emotions hijack the moment. Because the calmer you are, the more control you have. And in high-pressure situations, deadlines, emergencies, unexpected chaos, the person who slows down gains the advantage. When everyone else speeds up, they get sloppy, they make mistakes, they lose clarity, they crumble under emotional heat. But when you slow down, you rise. When you slow down, you think clearly. When you slow down, you become untouchable. Let me repeat it again. The calmer you are, the more control you have. That's why winners win. Not because they're more talented, not because they're more smart, but because they keep their internal climate stable while everyone else burns out. 4. Real-world scenarios where inner calm wins. Let's take this deeper. You need to see exactly how this works in your everyday life. Scenario 1. Work conflict. Someone snaps at you in a meeting. Old you? React instantly. Defend yourself. Match their speed. Lose control. New you? You pause. You breathe. You speak slowly and deliberately. You don't rise to their heat. You lower it with your calm. Why? Because the calmer you are, the more control you have. Scenario 2. Relationship trigger. A partner says something hurtful. Old you would respond emotionally. New you responds intentionally. You say less. You speak slowly. You don't let the trigger control your identity. You have a choice, and you choose clarity over chaos. Scenario 3. Unexpected life events. Plans change. Pressure rises. Something goes wrong. Most people panic. You don't. You breathe. You assess. You move with discipline, not emotion. This is internal strength. This is quiet power. 5. Stability is a skill, not a personality trait. People like to say, "I'm just emotional." No, that's not a personality trait. That's a lack of discipline. You are not wired to react. You are trained by your past. And now you're untraining yourself. Now you're teaching your mind a new way to exist. Because emotional stability isn't about being cold. It's about being controlled. It's not about never feeling upset. It's about choosing how you respond. You don't need their permission to stay calm. You don't need validation for being the steady one. You don't need approval for choosing peace. It's not about emotion. It's about discipline. And discipline is what makes you untouchable. Conclusion of Chapter 2. You just mastered the foundation of quiet power. Control your inner climate first, because if you cannot control what happens inside you, then the world will always control you. You've learned the tools, you've learned the discipline, you've learned the truth. The calmer you are, the more control you have. Now it's time to take this calmness and turn it into strategy. You mastered your inner climate. Now, let's talk about the power of silence.
Silence removes your vulnerabilities. Understand that first. Because silence is not passive. Silence is not weakness. Silence is not fear. Silence is strategy. Silence is discipline. Silence is control. Most people talk because they're uncomfortable with themselves. Most people talk because they're afraid of empty space. Most people talk because they think words equal power. They don't. Talking too much is how you leak power. Talking too much is how you expose yourself. Talking too much is how people learn what to use against you. You want to be untouchable? You want quiet power? You want mental dominance? Then hear this clearly. Silence is your shield. Say it again. Silence is your shield. And if you master it, you become someone people cannot read, cannot manipulate, and cannot defeat. Let's go deeper. 1. Talking too much leaks power. You lose power every time you speak without intention. Every unnecessary word is a crack in your armor. Every overshare becomes ammunition for someone else. Every emotional spill becomes a weakness in the hands of the wrong person. You have a choice. You always have a choice. And the choice is simple. Speak with purpose or don't speak at all. Most people talk because they're uncomfortable with themselves. Most people talk because they're afraid of empty space. Most people talk because they think words equal power. They don't. Talking too much is how you leak power. Talking too much is how you expose yourself. Talking too much is how people learn what to use against you. You want to be untouchable? You want quiet power? You want mental dominance? Then hear this clearly. Silence is your shield. Say it again. Silence is your shield. And if you master it, you become someone people cannot read, cannot manipulate, and cannot defeat. Let's go deeper. 2. Silence forces the world to show its hand. Powerful people stay silent for a reason. Silence makes others uncomfortable. Silence makes others rush. Silence makes others expose their motives. Let me give you real examples. Example 1. Negotiations. In negotiations, the strongest person says the least. They listen, they observe, they let silence stretch, and the other side starts talking themselves into weaker positions. Why does that happen? Because people fear silence. People fear stillness. People fear the possibility that you're not agreeing, not reacting, not impressed. So they talk, and talk, and talk, while you gain leverage without saying a word. That's the key. Silence is your shield. Example 2. Arguments. In arguments, silence is devastating. Most people argue emotionally. They talk fast. They say too much. They reveal too much. But when you stay silent, when you speak only when necessary, you force the other person to expose their lack of control. You show them the difference between reaction and discipline. Because it's not about being right. It's about being calm. It's not about winning the argument. It's about keeping your power. And the calmer you are, the more control you have. Example 3. Manipulative conversations. Manipulators rely on your reactions. They rely on you talking. They rely on you explaining yourself. They rely on your need to be understood. Stop giving them that. Silence breaks their script. Silence destroys their rhythm. Silence removes their control. You watch. You listen. You respond with precision. Because silence is your shield. 4. Silence makes you impossible to read. People fear what they cannot read. People cannot manipulate what they cannot predict. People cannot disrespect someone whose reactions are invisible. When you speak less, your power increases. When you reveal less, your influence grows. When you sit in silence, people start evaluating themselves instead of you. That's the shift. That's the strategy. That's the power. Talking reveals your emotions. Silence hides them. Talking reveals your weaknesses. Silence conceals them. Talking reveals your insecurities. Silence transforms them into mystery. And mystery creates respect. You don't need their permission to stay silent. You don't need to justify your calmness. You don't need validation to choose power over noise. This is your discipline, your identity, your edge. It's not about being aloof. It's about being in control. 5. How to implement strategic silence in daily life. Let's turn this into action. Here's how you apply silence in real-world situations starting today. Rule 1. Speak only when you have something valuable to add. Not to fill space, not to soothe discomfort, not to prove yourself. Speak with purpose, speak with intention, speak with discipline. Rule 2. Use silence after questions. Someone asks you something? Pause. Think. Then respond. This pause makes you appear calm, confident, and deeply in control. Rule 3. Use silence when someone is emotional. Their anger is not your invitation. Their intensity is not your responsibility. Let them burn their fuel. You stay grounded. Rule 4. Use silence when someone tries to manipulate you. Don't defend yourself excessively. Don't explain yourself unnecessarily. Don't feed the game. Silence breaks manipulation faster than confrontation. Rule 5. Use silence to gather information. People reveal everything when you give them space. Let them talk. Let them over-explain. Let them expose their true intentions. You just observe. You stay centered. You remain in control. Because silence is your shield. 6. You become untouchable when you master silence. There's a reason the most powerful people speak with calm, slow, deliberate precision. They don't rush. They don't babble. They don't throw words recklessly. They understand something most people don't. Words are expensive. Energy is expensive. Reactions are expensive. And silence? Silence saves everything. Silence protects your energy. Silence protects your power. Silence protects your identity. You don't need their permission to use silence. You don't need approval to stay composed. You don't need validation to speak less and observe more. This is discipline. This is strategy. This is quiet power. Conclusion of Chapter 3. You now understand one of the most powerful tools of the untouchable mind. Silence is strategy, not weakness. Silence removes your vulnerabilities. Silence forces others to reveal themselves. Silence shields you from manipulation, chaos, and emotional traps. You say less. You observe more. You respond intentionally. And because of that, your power rises. Now that you've mastered silence, it's time for the next level of control. The ability to stop chasing validation and become completely self-sourced. You mastered silence. Now let's talk about the hidden prison that weakens everyone.
Validation is emotional debt. The more you need it, the more you owe. And the more you owe, the less control you have. You need to understand this now. Approval is a prison. Self-respect is freedom. That's the key. You have lived most of your life trading your peace for permission. You've lived most of your life handing your power to people who weren't even thinking about you. You've lived most of your life reacting to opinions that never built anything, never sacrificed anything, and never lived your life for a single day. And today, that ends. Because if you want to be untouchable, if you want quiet power, if you want mental dominance, then you must cut the addiction that has destroyed more potential than failure ever has. The addiction to validation. You have a choice, right now. You can keep bending, or you can start building. Let's break the chains. The root of the prison. You chase validation because you think it gives you safety, but the truth is harsh. It makes you weaker. The moment you depend on someone's praise, you hand them control of your mood, your energy, your direction. That's the key. When you need approval, you can be manipulated. When you need applause, you can be controlled. When you need to be understood, you will always over-explain. Look at your life. Think about the moments that drained you the most. They all came from one pattern, trying to convince people who were committed to misunderstanding you. You don't need their permission. You don't need their applause. You don't need their agreement. What you need is discipline, not attention, not validation, not approval. Discipline, because it's not about being liked. It's about being grounded. It's not about being impressive. It's about being unbreakable. The social media illusion. Let's talk about the world you live in. Every platform is a scoreboard of fake worth. Every scroll demands comparison. Every like becomes a microdose of approval that your brain starts to crave like oxygen. This is not connection. This is conditioning. You post for approval. You share for reactions. You measure your life by metrics that can be taken away with a single algorithm change. Approval is a prison. Self-respect is freedom. Ask yourself, why does a number determine your mood? Why does a stranger's opinion define your day? Why does silence from someone online feel like rejection? Because the platforms trained you. They taught you to seek permission before you feel good about yourself. And here's the truth you don't want to hear yet. You owe them nothing. You don't owe the world an image, or an update, or an explanation. You have a choice. You can break the loop. You can stop feeding the machine. Post when you want, share what you want, or don't. Freedom is the ability to decide without needing applause to justify it. Self-respect is freedom. Repeat it until it rewires your mind. The people-pleasing loop. Let's talk about your real life, the offline one. The one where you do favors you don't want to do, say yes when you want to say no, show up for people who would never show up for you. Why? Because you fear disappointing them, because you fear being judged, because you fear losing approval. But here's the harsh truth. Most people aren't thinking about you. Their opinions are shallow, temporary, and inconsistent. You are bending your life around something that barely exists. You have a choice, and it's time you start choosing yourself. People-pleasing is not kindness. It is self-abandonment. It is emotional debt. It drains you, it breaks you, it keeps you small. And every time you do it, you reinforce a belief.
I am not enough unless others approve. That is the belief we destroy today. You don't need their permission to rest. You don't need their permission to say no. You don't need their permission to walk away. That's the key. You reclaim your power the moment you stop asking for it. The habit of over-explaining. Let's go deeper. One of the biggest leaks of power in your life is the need to explain yourself. You explain your choices. You explain your boundaries. You explain your silence. You explain your goals. But understand this. People who get it don't need explanations. People who don't get it won't understand even with them. You have a choice. Give long speeches or give short decisions. Every time you over-explain, you reinforce the idea that your decisions need approval to be real, but they don't, and they never did. It's not about insecurity, it's about discipline. Discipline to say less. Discipline to trust yourself. Discipline to act without broadcasting every move. Approval is a prison. Self-respect is freedom. Start giving people shorter answers. Start letting no be a complete sentence. Start standing on your choices without apologizing for them. That's how you become untouchable. The shift into freedom. You need a new rule in your life. If approval costs your peace, it's too expensive. You have chased acceptance for years. You have chased applause for years. You have chased being understood for years. And what did it get you? Stress, insecurity, emotional exhaustion. You have a choice now. A real choice. A powerful choice. Choose self-respect. Choose boundaries. Choose your own voice. Choose your own path. Because the truth is simple. People respect those who don't beg for respect. People admire those who don't chase admiration. People follow those who don't seek followers. When you stop needing validation, you become magnetic. When you stop explaining yourself, you become unpredictable. When you stop chasing approval, you become untouchable. That's the key. And that's the transformation you came for. Transition to next chapter. You just broke the chains of external validation. You cut the addiction that kept you small. Now you understand why approval is a prison and why self-respect is the only real freedom. You took back your voice. You took back your peace. You took back your power. Now it's time to take back something even bigger. Your emotional independence. You escaped the trap. Now, let's talk about the weapon.
Untouchable people don't just have boundaries. They enforce them. Without apology. Without softness. Without asking for permission. Because a boundary is a rule, not a request. That's the key. You have been treating boundaries like suggestions, like polite invitations, like gentle reminders that can be negotiated. But if you want real power, quiet power, unshakable power, you must learn one truth. A boundary that isn't enforced is not a boundary. It's a wish. And wishes don't protect you. Rules do. This chapter is not about being liked. It is about being respected. It is not about being agreeable. It is about being untouchable. You have a choice right now. You can keep giving people discounts on access to you, or you can raise the price. You can keep saying yes to avoid conflict, or you can start saying no to avoid self-betrayal. You can keep explaining why you need space, why you need time, why you need distance. Or you can stand firm
and let your rules speak for you. A boundary is a rule, not a request. Repeat it until it becomes part of your spine. The problem: you've been afraid to disappoint people. Let's start with the truth. You are exhausted because you're overextended. Not because life is too hard, but because you've allowed people to treat you like you don't matter. You say yes when you're tired. You agree when you're unsure. You adjust when they push. You shrink when they demand. And every time you do that, you send a message. I don't take myself seriously. Then you wonder why they don't take you seriously either. You have a choice. Stop blaming them for crossing the line when you never established one. Stop blaming them for draining you when you never closed the door. Stop blaming them for demanding more when you kept giving more. This is not about weakness. It's about discipline. Discipline to protect your time. Discipline to protect your mind. Discipline to protect your energy. A boundary is a rule, not a request. And rules require consequences. Rule number 1. No is a complete sentence. Let's make something clear. If your no requires an explanation, it wasn't a boundary. It was a negotiation. Powerful people don't negotiate their bandwidth. They decide, they act, they move on. You don't need their permission to decline. You don't need their approval to prioritize yourself. You don't need their understanding to choose peace. Your no doesn't need to sound friendly. It doesn't need to soften the blow. It doesn't need to be wrapped in justification. No is enough. No is complete. No is a rule. That's the key. When you say no, you protect your time. When you say no, you protect your energy. When you say no, you protect your standards. And here's the part people don't want to hear. Every yes you give to the wrong person is a no stolen from the right person. Every unnecessary obligation steals from your focus. Every soft boundary steals from your potential. So practice it. No. Say it without apology. Say it without guilt. Say it without fear. A boundary is a rule, not a request. Rule number 2. Cut off access when necessary. There will come a point when someone repeatedly shows you they cannot respect your boundaries. Not by accident, not because they didn't understand, but because they don't care. And when that happens, you must act. You must withdraw access. Not dramatically, not emotionally, not as a performance, but as a decision. You have a choice. You can either let people drain you, or you can remove the pipeline they drain you from. Silence is a form of enforcement. Distance is a form of enforcement. Not responding is a form of enforcement. A boundary means nothing if breaking it has no consequences. But here's the problem. Most people hope the boundary will enforce itself. It won't. You enforce it. You decide who gets access. You decide who gets proximity. You decide who earns your time. That's the key.
Your time is not a community resource. Your peace is not a public space. Your attention is not a charity. If someone breaks your rules, limit access. If they break them again, remove access. Not with anger, but with discipline. This is how untouchable people operate. Quiet, clear, certain. A boundary is a rule, not a request. Rule number 3. Raise your standards for who gets your time. Your life changes the moment you stop giving your time to people who don't value it. Your peace expands when you stop entertaining chaos. Your mind sharpens when you stop allowing distractions disguised as relationships. Why are they still allowed in your life? Why do they still have access to you? Why are you still available to their chaos? You have a choice. And this is where discipline comes in. It's not about being cold. It's about being selective. It's not about being guarded. It's about being intentional. You should not be easily accessible. You should not be always available. You should not be reachable by everyone. Powerful people are selective, focused, protected. That's the key. Your time is valuable. Your energy is valuable. Your presence is valuable. Start acting like it. Raise your standards. Raise the bar for who gets close. Raise your expectations for how you're treated. Because the truth is simple. You attract better people when you enforce better boundaries. A boundary is a rule, not a request. The transformation begins with one decision. You are no longer the person who apologizes for having limits. You are no longer the person who tries to please everyone. You are no longer the person who sacrifices peace for connection. You have a choice, and now you're choosing yourself. You're choosing clarity. You're choosing discipline. You're choosing inner power. Slowly, the world will adjust. People will adapt to the new rules. Some will leave, and they were supposed to. Some will stay, and they will respect you more because of it. Boundaries don't push the right people away. They push the wrong people out. A boundary is a rule, not a request. Remember that every time someone tries to negotiate with you. Remember it every time you feel the urge to soften a no. Remember it every time you feel guilty for choosing yourself. This is your power. This is your structure. This is your shield. And you just learned how to enforce it. Transition to next chapter. You enforce the rule. You raise the standard. You reclaim the space people once took for granted. Now you're ready for the next level of power, the mastery of emotional detachment.
If they can trigger you, they control you. That is the law. That is the reality. That is the exact reason most people never become untouchable. You lose your power the moment you react. You lose your leverage the moment you take the bait. You lose your clarity the moment you hand your emotions to someone else's agenda. And the worst part? Most people aren't even trying to win. They're just trying to get a reaction. Because a reaction tells them everything. Your weakness, your insecurities, your emotional temperature. But today, you rise above that game. Today,
You take back the power that your reactions have been giving away for years. You have a choice. Right now, you can keep feeding the fire, or you can starve it. You can keep letting people pull your strings, or you can cut every string they think they control. Non-reaction is not silence. Non-reaction is strategy. Non-reaction is mastery. Non-reaction is domination. And most importantly, non-reaction dissolves manipulation. It kills the game. It removes their advantage. From this moment forward, you live by a new rule. Do not feed the fire. Repeat it every time someone tries to provoke you. The reason people try to trigger you. Let's get something straight. People don't provoke you because they're powerful. They provoke you because they're powerless. Because reaction is the only tool they have. Weak people use emotional tactics. Strong people use emotional control. That's the key. The moment you react, you enter their world. You start playing by their rules. You fight battles you never needed to fight. Think about the last time someone insulted you. A comment, a jab, a passive-aggressive remark, a sarcastic little line designed to poke your ego. Why did they do it? Because your reaction would validate them. Your reaction would give them power. Your reaction would prove that they matter more to you than they should. You have a choice. And here's the truth. The moment you stop reacting, they lose their influence. Their words hit a wall instead of your nerves. Their games end before they begin. Their manipulation fails because you refuse to play. Do not feed the fire. The art of non-reaction. Non-reaction is not weakness. It is discipline. It's not about shutting down. It's about rising above. It takes strength to pause. It takes strength to breathe. It takes strength to not give them what they want. Non-reaction is a decision, a strategy, a quiet form of domination. You don't flinch. You don't explain. You don't defend. You don't retaliate. You observe. You analyze. You stay calm. Because the calmer you are, the more control you have. That's the key. When you don't react, you shift the power dynamic instantly. They become uncomfortable. They become confused. They become exposed. People who rely on emotional tactics crumble when you don't play the emotional game. Do not feed the fire. Example number 1. Insulting comments. Let's start with the simplest example. Someone insults you. They make a comment designed to ignite your ego. They want an emotional spark. But the moment you react, you lose. Because the reaction tells them you're reactive. The reaction tells them you're vulnerable. The reaction tells them the insult worked. You have a choice. Instead of reacting, stay still. Instead of defending, stay quiet. Instead of returning the insult, return nothing. Watch what happens. Their confidence collapses. Their energy shifts. Their control disappears. Because your lack of reaction shows something their insult couldn't handle. You don't need their permission to feel secure. You don't need their praise to feel grounded. And you definitely don't need their comment to validate your worth. Do not feed the fire. Example number 2. Jealousy games. People will test you. They will try to trigger you with jealousy games. Showing off, hinting, posting, flirting in front of you, acting like you're replaceable. Why? Because if they can make you react, they own the emotional frame. But here's the truth. Powerful people don't compete. Powerful people don't chase. Powerful people don't take the bait. You have a choice. Let them play the game alone. Let them perform. Let them talk. Let them boast. Your silence is your dominance. Your stillness is your strength. Your lack of reaction is their defeat. It's not about jealousy. It's about discipline. Discipline to stay focused on yourself. Discipline to stay grounded. Discipline to stay untouchable. Do not feed the fire. Example number 3. Power plays. Manipulators thrive on reactions. They use silence to provoke you. They use tone to intimidate you. They use pressure to corner you. And they're counting on one thing: that you react emotionally instead of responding logically. But you have a choice. You can pause, you can breathe, you can observe. And guess what happens when you do that? The entire manipulation collapses. Because power plays only work on people who rush, people who panic, people who react without thinking. You are not that person anymore. You listen, you analyze, you hold your ground. Non-reaction buys you time. Non-reaction exposes their tactics. Non-reaction forces them to reveal their desperation. Do not feed the fire. The psychological shift you must make. You must adopt a new belief. Not everything deserves your energy. Not every comment deserves a response. Not every insult deserves a battle. Not every provocation deserves your peace. You have a choice. And now you choose control over chaos, calm over ego, discipline over reaction. Because it's not about being emotional, it's about being strategic. It's not about being passive, it's about being powerful. The quieter you are, the stronger you become. The calmer you are, the harder you are to manipulate. The slower you react, the faster you win. Do not feed the fire. Your new rule: respond only with intention. You don't react to noise. You respond to truth. You respond to clarity. You respond with purpose. If a reaction won't improve your life, you don't give it. If a reaction won't benefit your future, you don't offer it. If a reaction won't move you forward, you hold it back. That's the discipline. That's the control. That's the transformation. Non-reaction makes you unpredictable. Non-reaction makes you unbreakable. Non-reaction makes you untouchable. Do not feed the fire. Transition to the next chapter. You just mastered the art of holding your power. You learned how non-reaction dissolves manipulation. You learned how calm destroys chaos. You learned how to starve the fire until it dies. Now it's time for the next level. Non-reaction protects your mind, but elimination protects your life. Let's go deeper.
You want emotional power? You want mental independence? You want to stop being controlled by opinions, reactions, and approval? Then listen carefully. Internal validation is the foundation. Internal validation is the engine. Internal validation is the source of real power. And here's the truth you've avoided for too long. If it doesn't come from within, it will always be used against you. That's the key. Read it again in your mind. Let it burn. Let it break the old identity you've lived inside for years. You have relied on external validation your entire life. You've depended on praise. You've depended on recognition. You've depended on someone else telling you, "Good job," before you allow yourself to feel good. But here's the harsh reality. When your worth is outsourced, your stability is outsourced. When your confidence depends on applause, your confidence collapses without applause. When your identity is built on external voices, those voices get to rewrite you anytime they want. If it doesn't come from within, it will always be used against you. That's the key. Read it again in your mind. Let it burn. Let it break the old identity you've lived inside for years. You have relied on external validation your entire life. You've depended on praise. You've depended on recognition. You've depended on someone else telling you "good job" before you allow yourself to feel good. But here's the harsh reality. When your worth is outsourced, your stability is outsourced. When your confidence depends on applause, your confidence collapses without applause. When your identity is built on external voices, those voices get to rewrite you anytime they want. If it doesn't come from within, it will always be used against you. That's the warning. That's the truth. That's the lesson. That's why you felt controlled. That's why you felt manipulated. That's why you felt anxious whenever someone disapproves. You weren't anxious about what they thought. You were anxious because you needed it. Neediness is a leash, and someone will always pull a leash. But today, you cut it. Today, you learn the discipline of internal validation. You have a choice, a real one, a powerful one. You can choose to make your validation internal, not external. Self-generated, not socially borrowed. Private, not public. This is the moment you switch sources. The root of neediness. Let's break it down. Most people live their lives chasing three things: approval, acceptance, and acknowledgement. And they spend their lives drained, exhausted, and disappointed because they expect these things from people who are inconsistent, distracted, or simply uninterested. You've done it too. You post something online and refresh 20 times to see who liked it. You share your goals, hoping someone says, "Wow, that's impressive." You stop working the moment someone stops praising you. You start doubting yourself the moment someone questions you. You break. You crumble. You lose your fire. Not because you're weak, but because you handed your emotional fuel to people who don't even know what to do with their own lives. It's not about your insecurities. It's about your discipline. The discipline to choose your own validation. If it doesn't come from within, it will always be used against you. That's the key. The shift to internal validation. So how do you shift? How do you move from neediness to independence? You stop waiting for permission. You stop waiting for praise. You stop waiting for approval. You don't need their permission. Read that again. You do not need their permission. Not for your dreams, not for your progress, not for your transformation. Internal validation is built with behavior, not feelings. You track your own goals. You measure your own improvements. You celebrate your own wins, even the private ones, the small ones, the ones no one sees. Because small victories build self-respect, and self-respect builds internal validation. You have a choice: internal validation or emotional slavery. Pick one. Practical steps. This is where you transform. Let's get tactical. Here are the behaviors that shift you from needy to untouchable. 1. Set personal metrics.
Not metrics based on comparison, not metrics based on attention, personal metrics. Did you do what you said you would do today? Did you keep the promise you made to yourself? Did you improve even 1% compared to yesterday? That's the discipline. That's the framework. Your progress is your validation. Keep your wins private. This is one of the most powerful tools. Private wins create internal power. When you stop broadcasting your progress, you stop chasing reactions. You become self-fueled. You become self-directed. You stop asking the world to clap for you. And guess what happens? You start clapping for yourself. Build a daily record of self-respect. Every time you do something difficult, write it down. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, write it down. Every time you choose discipline over comfort, write it down. This is not journaling. This is evidence. Evidence that you are someone who can trust yourself. When you trust yourself, you don't need them. That's the key. Refuse external validation traps. There are traps everywhere. Posting for praise, sharing goals just to sound impressive, asking for opinions you don't need, depending on reassurance to move forward. Each trap steals power. Each trap strengthens your neediness. Each trap makes you controllable. Do not fall for them. If it doesn't come from within, it will always be used against you. That's the warning, that's the truth, that's the lesson. Why internal validation makes you untouchable. When you validate yourself, you become emotionally self-sufficient. You stop being triggered by criticism. You stop being flattered by fake compliments. You stop bending to opinions. Because your worth is already established. Your foundation is already solid. Your judgment of yourself matters more than anyone else's. People can test you, they can doubt you, they can talk down to you, but they can't control you. Why? Because they don't hold your validation. You do. That's the transformation. That's the shift. You have a choice. Choose independence. The real secret. Here's what no one tells you. Needing validation is normal, but depending on validation is dangerous. And most people never escape the dependency. Most people never build an internal engine. Most people never experience the freedom of self-generated confidence. But you are not most people. You're here. You're listening. You're transforming. Internal validation is not a luxury. It's a discipline, a daily discipline. And discipline is what separates the weak from the powerful. It's not about your insecurities. It's about your discipline. You build your validation like you build strength, in reps, in consistency, in private. If it doesn't come from within, it will always be used against you. Memorize that. Repeat it. Live by it. The transition to the next lesson. And now you understand the truth. If your confidence is internal, no one can shake it. If your worth is internal, no one can steal it. If your validation is internal, no one can weaponize it. This is how you become emotionally self-sufficient. You've built the foundation. Now it's time to build the shield. Because emotional independence is only the beginning. You also need emotional defense. You learned how to validate yourself. Now you need to learn how to protect that validation from the world.
You want power. You want momentum. You want results that speak louder than your explanations, your posts, your updates. Then you need to understand something most people never learn. Quiet moves create unstoppable momentum. Work in the dark, shine in the result. That's the key. Everything you've been told about announcing your goals, sharing your progress, and broadcasting your ambitions, it's wrong. It dilutes you. It scatters your strength. It exposes your plans to people who don't deserve access to your internal world. You have a choice. You can either live to be seen, or you can build to be undeniable. Quiet power is real power. Silent discipline is the deepest form of control. When you stop seeking attention, you start seeking mastery. And mastery is what wins. The problem with being loud. Let's talk about why loud ambition fails. When you talk too much about what you're going to do, your brain tricks you into believing you've already done it. You get dopamine instead of progress. You get approval instead of discipline. You lose hunger. You lose edge. You lose urgency. And here's the harsh truth. Most people don't want you to succeed. They want you predictable. They want you comfortable. They want you small enough that your growth doesn't force them to confront their own stagnation. When you announce your plans, you invite resistance. You invite jealousy. You invite sabotage. You invite opinions you never asked for. You don't need their permission. You don't need their applause. You don't need their validation. Your focus is your currency. Protect it. The psychology of silent work. Quiet work creates pressure. Pressure creates growth. Growth creates power. And the most powerful growth is invisible, internal, unseen. Think about the strongest transformations in your life. They happened in silence. Your best decisions were made alone. Your greatest realizations were internal. Your deepest shifts came when no one was watching. Silence forces clarity. Silence forces discipline. Silence forces accountability. When no one is watching, you can't perform. You have to work. That's the key. That's the discipline. That's the transformation. Real-world applications of quiet power. Let's break down the domains where quiet grind produces unstoppable results. 1. Career advancement. Everybody talks at work. Everybody performs for attention. Everybody wants to be noticed. But the people who rise aren't the loud ones. They're the consistent ones, the solution-focused ones, the ones who make progress without theatrics. You don't announce your next move. You prepare it. You refine it. You execute it silently. Work in the dark. Shine in the result. 2. Fitness and discipline. Real body transformation isn't posted. It's earned. It's the 6 a.m. workouts no one sees. It's the meals you didn't brag about skipping. It's the discipline you maintained when no one was cheering. Quiet effort builds visible results. Loud effort builds temporary applause. You have a choice. 3. Financial growth. Smart money doesn't brag. Smart money doesn't flex. Smart money doesn't broadcast. Every dollar you hide grows. Every plan you protect compounds. Every strategy you keep quiet matures without interrupting noise. Your wealth becomes loud only when your grind stays silent. Work in the dark. Shine in the result. The discipline of non-disclosure. Here's a truth few people want to accept. You lose power every time you speak before you act. Talking leaks energy. Talking invites doubt. Talking creates unnecessary expectations. Discipline is choosing silence when your ego wants attention. It's not about insecurity. It's about discipline. The discipline to stay quiet. The discipline to stay committed. The discipline to let results do the speaking. You don't need their permission. You don't need to explain your process. You don't need to justify your grind. Your silence is a strategy, a powerful one. People can't attack what they can't see. Read that again. Most of the pain in your life came from exposure. You let people see too much. You shared goals with people who didn't respect them. You shared plans with people who benefited from your stagnation. Quiet moves eliminate that danger. When you build in silence, nobody can interfere. Nobody can criticize what they don't know. Nobody can sabotage what they cannot reach. Quiet is protection. Quiet is leverage. Quiet is freedom. How to live the silent grind. Practical steps. This is where transformation starts. 1. Reduce your announcements. No more, "I'm starting this." No more, "I'm planning that." No more broadcasting your intentions. You owe no one a preview. Let them see the finished product. 2. Build a private routine. Your discipline becomes a ritual, a sacred schedule, a private contract between you and your future self. No audience, no witnesses, just discipline. 3. Document your progress privately. Not online, not to friends, not to family. Write it down for yourself. Your proof, your evidence, your accountability. 4. Reveal only when it's done. Finished work speaks for itself. Accomplished goals silence every critic. Results destroy doubt. That's the key. Work in the dark, shine in the result. Why silence builds unstoppable momentum. Momentum grows fastest when energy is not leaked. Every day you stay quiet, you stay locked in. Every day you keep your goals to yourself, you keep your power concentrated. Every day you practice private discipline, you strengthen your internal engine. Loud people burn out. Quiet people build empires. You have a choice. Do you want attention, or do you want transformation? Do you want noise, or do you want results? Do you want to be talked about, or do you want to be undeniable? Quiet builds the undeniable. Quiet builds the unstoppable. Quiet builds the unshakable. Work in the dark, shine in the result. The transition to the next lesson. This chapter gave you the strategy, silence, focus, private execution. You've learned how quiet moves build momentum. Now you need to learn how to keep that momentum by controlling the one thing that destroys most people's progress: distraction. You mastered silence. Now you must master attention.
If you want to be untouchable, you must understand a brutal truth. Attachment creates fear. Fear creates weakness. And weakness makes you easy to manipulate, easy to control, easy to break. The greatest power you will ever develop is the ability to stay calm when the world tries to pull you in, to stay focused when people try to shake you, to stay centered when outcomes don't go your way. Detachment is leverage. Detachment is clarity. Detachment is emotional freedom. And you have a choice. You can cling to everything and suffer, or you can detach and rise. That's the key. Why attachment makes you weak. Let's break it down. Attachment ties your emotions to things you cannot control, to people who are inconsistent, to situations that are unpredictable, to outcomes that may never happen. It makes you reactive. It makes you anxious. It makes you desperate. And desperation kills your power. When you're attached, you stop thinking clearly. You start chasing. You start begging. You start negotiating your self-respect. Every time you cling, you lose leverage. Every time you cling, you lose focus. Every time you cling, you lose yourself. That's the flaw. But the answer is discipline. Because it's not about being emotionless, it's about being in control. Detachment is not indifference. It is mastery. Detachment doesn't mean you don't care. Detachment means you don't panic. Detachment means you don't cling. Detachment means you don't break when things don't go your way. You don't need their permission to succeed. You don't need their validation to grow. You don't need their acceptance to perform. When you detach emotionally, you see things for what they are, not what your insecurity wants them to be. Detachment cuts through noise. It exposes agendas. It reveals motives. And when you see clearly, you win clearly. Let go to gain control. Detachment in relationships. This is where most people fall apart. You cling. You fear losing them. You fear disappointing them. You fear being alone. And that fear turns into weakness. It makes you overlook red flags. It makes you tolerate disrespect. It makes you settle for less than you deserve. But when you detach, you gain something powerful. You stop chasing. You stop over-explaining. You stop lowering your standards. Detachment gives you emotional independence. Emotional independence gives you leverage. Leverage gives you peace. You have a choice. Love with fear or love with strength. Attachment is fear. Detachment is strength. The calmer you become, the less others can control you. Let go to gain control. Detachment in workplace politics. Office environments are saturated with emotional traps, competition, jealousy, backhanded compliments, rumors cycles, power plays. If you're attached to being liked, you lose. If you're attached to being praised, you lose. If you're attached to every comment, you lose. The people who rise are the ones who can detach, the ones who don't flinch, the ones who don't react, the ones who don't get pulled into noise. You don't need their permission to succeed. You don't need their validation to grow. You don't need their acceptance to perform. When you detach emotionally, you see things for what they are, not what your insecurity wants them to be. Detachment cuts through noise. It exposes agendas. It reveals motives. And when you see clearly, you win clearly. Let go to gain control. Detachment during unpredictable events. Life will hit you suddenly, sharply, without warning. A plan falls apart. A person leaves. A project fails. A door closes. When you're attached, moments like these destroy you. They break your identity. They break your confidence. They break your momentum. But detachment changes everything. Detachment says, this didn't go how I wanted, but I'm not owned by the outcome. You pivot. You reevaluate. You move.
Strong people don't avoid unpredictability, they prepare for it. And preparation starts with detachment, because you cannot prepare for life if you're attached to a single version of how life must happen. Let go to gain control. The practical framework for detachment. You cannot think your way into detachment. You must train your way into it. Here's how. 1. Create outcome distance. Stop tying your self-worth to results. Results come and go. Identity must stay grounded. You don't say, I need this to work. You say, if this works, great. If not, I adapt. That's the key. 2. Breathe before responding. Your breath is the first step of detachment. A deep breath interrupts emotional patterns. A deep breath breaks attachment. You have a choice: react instantly or control the moment. Control starts with pausing. 3. Speak less. Observe more. Attachment makes you talk too much. Detachment forces you to watch, to learn, to assess. Every insight you gain makes you stronger. Every observation makes you wiser. You don't need their permission to stay silent. Silence is discipline. 4. Stop predicting. Start preparing. Attachment makes you fantasize. Detachment makes you strategize. You stop expecting people to act a certain way. You stop expecting outcomes to unfold perfectly. You stop expecting the world to reward your effort immediately. You prepare for reality instead of clinging to the ideal. 5. Practice emotional neutrality. Neutrality is power. Neutrality is clarity. Neutrality is dominance. You don't jump to conclusions. You don't assume the worst. You don't spiral into fear. You see what is, not what you fear, not what you hope, what is. Let go to gain control. Why detachment makes you untouchable? When you detach, people lose their influence over you. They can't guilt you. They can't threaten you. They can't manipulate your fear. They can't use your hopes against you. You become emotionally self-sufficient. You become mentally grounded. You become impossible to shake. And that's what untouchable truly means. Calm under pressure. Clear under chaos. Stable when everything else is unstable. You're no longer driven by force, you're driven by choice. And the moment you operate from choice, you operate from power. Let go to gain control. Transition to next chapter. You've learned how detachment gives you leverage. You've learned how releasing fear releases power. You've learned how letting go creates clarity. Now it's time to take that clarity and apply it to something even deeper. Your identity. Because once you detach from outcomes, you must build the unshakable foundation inside yourself.
Quiet power isn't an accident. Quiet power is earned every day. And today, you're going to understand why. Because everything you've learned, every moment of discipline, every moment you chose control over chaos, every time you stepped back instead of reacting, you're about to consolidate it. You're about to build a personal discipline system. Not a routine, not a checklist, a system, a lifestyle, an identity. You have a choice. Live on autopilot like everyone else, or build a structure that makes you unshakable. That's the key. Let's get to work.
The shift from effort to identity. Most people try to fix their life by trying harder. Trying harder is fragile. Effort fades, motivation dies, emotion changes. But identity? Identity anchors you. Identity sustains you. Identity makes decisions for you. You don't need their permission to evolve. You don't need praise to continue. You don't need perfect conditions to execute. Because when discipline becomes who you are, you stop negotiating with yourself. It's not about motivation. It's about discipline. It's not about perfection. It's about consistency. It's not about intensity. It's about identity. Quiet power is earned every day. The structure of a disciplined life. Here's what most people get wrong. They think discipline is random bursts of effort. They think discipline is forcing yourself to grind when you don't want to. They think discipline is about being strong in the moment. Wrong. Discipline is the system that removes decisions, a system that removes friction, a system that removes weakness before it appears. You have a choice every morning. Wake up into chaos or wake up into structure. And structure wins. Let's build yours. The morning foundation. Claiming the day before the world touches you. Begin with a morning routine. Not a fancy one, not a 12-step influencer plan, a foundation. Why? Because discipline begins with the first action of the day. What you do in the morning tells your brain one thing: I'm in control. Quiet power is earned every day, especially first thing in the morning. Here's the simple framework. 1. Wake up at the same time you create internal order. 2. Do one action that centers you. Breathing, stretching, reading. 3. Do one action that improves you. Writing, learning, planning. 4. Do one action that strengthens you. Physical movement. Consistency is the only requirement. Even 5 minutes of discipline builds identity. You have a choice. You can claim the day, or the day will claim you. Isolation periods, where clarity lives. There's a reason the strongest minds step away from noise. Noise weakens you. Noise distracts you. Noise pulls your emotions in 100 directions. Isolation isn't loneliness. Isolation is alignment. You need isolation periods, daily, weekly, monthly. Why? Because your emotional system needs silence to stabilize. Your mind needs space to think. Your identity needs room to grow. This is where the phrase becomes real. Quiet power is earned every day, especially in the spaces no one sees. Your isolation periods can be a 20-minute silent walk, a journal session, a room with no digital interruptions, a weekend reset with zero social expectations. Protect these periods with your life, because they give you exactly what the world will never give you: clarity. And clarity is strength. Focus blocks. These are the zones of execution. Now you need focus blocks. This is where progress happens, where goals become results, where your emotional discipline becomes visible output. A focus block is simple. You pick one task. You shut everything else out. You finish it. That's it. But here's the truth. The world is designed to weaken your attention. Notifications, drama, random conversations, pointless scrolling, emotional bait
everywhere. Focus is rebellion, and rebellion builds power. You have a choice. Let the world scatter your attention or reclaim the most valuable currency you have, your focus. Quiet power is earned every day, especially in focus. Emotional audits. The mastery you don't realize you need. Now we get to the core, the part everyone avoids, the part that defines your entire system. Emotional audits. What are they? They are daily check-ins where you ask yourself, where did I react today? Where did emotion control me instead of discipline? What triggered me? What did I avoid? What did I tolerate that I shouldn't have? This is how you eliminate weakness before it becomes behavior. This is how you identify patterns before they become sabotage. This is how you build emotional control for life. Remember, emotional stability is not a feeling. It's a practice, a skill, a system. You have a choice. Face your emotional truth or be ruled by emotions you never examine. Quiet power is earned every day, especially in honesty. The compounding effect of self-respect. As these systems stack, morning discipline, isolation, focus blocks, emotional audits, something changes, slowly, quietly, powerfully. Self-respect grows, and self-respect changes everything. When you respect yourself, you stop chasing people, you stop negotiating your value, you stop reacting to nonsense, you stop accepting disrespect, you stop explaining yourself, you stop tolerating your old patterns, because you understand something crucial. You don't need their permission. You only need your discipline. Quiet power is earned every day. The identity shift. At some point, discipline stops feeling forced. It becomes you. Your behaviors align, your choices align, your energy aligns, your direction aligns. You no longer ask, "What should I do?" You simply do what your identity demands. This is the moment everything changes, when discipline stops being your effort and becomes your nature. That's the key. Closing the chapter. You've built systems. You've built structure. You've built stability. And now you're building identity. But understand this, a disciplined life doesn't make you rigid. It makes you powerful. It makes you calm. It makes you impossible to move. Quiet power is earned every day, and you're earning it on purpose. You built the foundation. Now it's time to build something even more valuable, your internal world.
You mastered the system. Now let's master the state you live in. You are no longer the person who reacts to everything. You are no longer controlled by noise, by pressure, by opinions, by emotion. You have learned the psychology of quiet power, how to step back from chaos, how to protect your energy, how to stop explaining, stop proving, and stop giving people access to your emotions. You now understand that silence is strength, distance is clarity, boundaries are protection, and non-reaction is dominance. From this point forward, you move differently, you think differently, you choose differently. You carry yourself with calm confidence because you know exactly who you are and exactly what you will no longer tolerate. Now take this discipline into your life and apply it relentlessly. Your challenge is simple. Be the calmest person in every room. Be the quietest force in every conversation. Be the one they cannot shake, cannot read, and cannot influence. This is your new identity. This is quiet power. Now go live it.